Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cardano Live. I have Ryan Jones with us today. He is the founder of the MUSE project, which is a music-based project dealing with the music industry and how payments are made. Ryan, thank you for being here with us today. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, Rick. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm doing fantastic. So it's nice to be on your podcast.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. You know, it's a good day in crypto, too. I'm seeing green candles and stuff. I'm wearing my green shirt. Feeling lucky, bro. Feeling lucky.
I didn't
All
get the
right.
green
So
memo.
yeah. So Ryan is going to tell a story. He's a musician by trade. Tell us a little bit about your work in the music industry, and then tell us the history about the music industry. You have a couple of master's degrees in music, right?
Yeah,
What you got?
yeah. So, hi, my name's Ryan. So I have two master's degrees, one in music education, and so I was a teacher for 5 years. I taught high school. And then I also have a master's in conducting from USC in Los Angeles. So fight on, go Trojans. So I actually live in a hybrid of both worlds of classical and kind of indie, and then also I've done some, in the studio work. And musicians wear multiple hats, so we have to do many, many different jobs to make a living. So that requires you to kind of live in both worlds. You live where the money goes. So that's where I'm at. So
Yeah, and so during your work in the music industry, you've figured out how it works, how payments are made, how the musicians, how the songwriters receive their money, and you told me a story last week about that. Really cool story. Can you let's tell that story to the viewers so that they have a background of how the music industry works in paying the songwriters and the musicians.
yeah, yeah. So here's how it works. From this is the traditional model essentially. So you have a composition, so somebody who creates a melody, right? And then you have someone who might make a recording of that. And those are two different entities, and they actually have two different ways that they actually get paid, right? And so basically, the streaming services that we all have come to love and hate, depending on who you are, they were built by tech guys, and they did not care about payments to musicians. What they cared about was connecting those streaming platforms with labels and record labels, right? So they have on the back end, that was a priority for them when they were building it. They wanted to make sure that, I don't know if you all know this, but most of the major record labels have ownership or partial ownership over most of the major streaming services. So they get paid their dividend checks from whenever the streaming services go up in value. So, right, they're incentivized to make sure that they are successful. So, that being said, the musicians were an afterthought. So, here's the deal: when you're on Spotify, the average amount of money that an artist gets paid per stream is 0.002 cents per stream. And that sounds abysmal, right? Well, yeah, it is. But here's the other thing: streaming services, again, like Spotify, we can just use them as our gold standard because they're probably the most used.
Yeah,
Um,
I use Spotify.
yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
use Spotify too, right?
there you go. But they're good.
They have the user interface figured out, so I think it's a good user experience for the most part, at least on the consumer side. Um, but here's the thing: they won't pay musicians until their account balance gets to at least $1,000. And for those of you that are doing some quick math, at 0.002 cents per stream, you're looking at having to get almost a million streams to get to an account balance that they deem is appropriate to pay you. Now, legally, the government, at least in the states, came out and said that for streaming services, the onus is on them to pay the artist directly. And well, what do? When you have 20 something million streams in a month, they say, you know what, we're just going to hire this out to a third party. We're going to send them like an Excel sheet of all of the music that was streamed and let them go track down all these artists to pay them money. And so by doing that, you have cost. And then also the third party entity that they pay to go and pay out these mechanical royalties is what they are, is that company 15 to 30% of the total profits never make it to the artist because from either they just can't find them or the artist isn't registered in the database. etc. Right? So
Like, what
it's
if
a
the
lot of money
artist
there.
only has 400 or $500 in the account? It just sits there. Yeah.
Yeah, they never get paid. And what does Spotify do with that money? They take it and they reinvest it back in the company. And so, which is robbery essentially. And it's terrible. It is a terrible relationship between the streaming services and musicians. One thing I hadn't even said: if you are an artist who isn't signed with a label, the first thing you have to do to get your music on these big name streaming platforms is you need to go through another third party like CD Baby or DistroKid. These are called distributors, right? And you have to pay them a fee to use their service to get your music onto the streaming platforms, who then in turn only pay you once you get to $1,000, etc. Right? So the amount of money that you have to spend just to get on, and then the money that's left on the table, all because payments were an afterthought when they were creating these models. It's abysmal. So that's kind of the big thing. And so if you look at that, musicians who what do we do for a living? We create. Um, if you can't make a decent wage without selling your soul, quote unquote, and we'll talk about that in a second, then how do you do this? How do you make a living and still are able to create music? Well, you have to go and do different things, or you have to essentially, have multiple jobs or doing things that aren't music related that then take you away from doing the things that you love to do. Right. And so it's a lose lose, I think, for humanity as a whole, because I think what do people do? We love music. Music is a universal language, right? And if we have less people able to create, then we as a society, we're missing out on a lot of really potentially amazing things. So
Yeah. And I don't mind paying for music. I have a family Spotify subscription to receive music and to listen to podcasts. And then I also have a service provider subscription through Libsyn that sends the RSS to Spotify. So I use these services. I don't mind paying for them. They're not too expensive, but it does kind of disturb me a little bit that if you are primarily a music creator, that it is that difficult for the independent and small up and coming music creators and the songwriters to be able to generate revenues off their platform, right?
most
So,
assuredly.
yeah. So, tell us a little more about the music industry, and then tell us about the solutions that you've identified
Yeah.
with
Well,
blockchain. Go ahead. Sorry.
so here's the deal. Let's start with the A-list celebrity artists that everyone knows and loves, right? For example, we can just use Taylor Swift, because she just had a couple, I say just, but a couple of years ago had this big legal dispute to where she wanted to buy back all of her music from her label, right? And so here's the deal: musicians are not businessmen. I wish every person who went to a music school came out with a business minor, because here's the deal: anyone who signs with a record label, the reason they sign 9 times out of 10 is because they need operational money. They need cash flow. They need an advance so they can live while they make money. So what does the record label do? They put these things, and I call them golden handcuffs, essentially, onto musicians. And when they do this, when they sign, they're giving away 100% ownership over their music. So what does that look like in real life? Well, let's say I'm an up and coming artist. Let's just say, for example, Sony, they signed me. Woohoo. They give me $500,000 up front, money wise. And then why do they do that? So I don't have to work. I can just sit and make music. Well, that's great. So let's just say we do that. I get my money. I'm making music. I cut a CD. We have 10 tracks. We made a CD. I'm so happy about this. I'm ready for it to go out. They look at me and they go, you know what? This is great, but let's just wait. We're not going to put this out this year. We're going to wait for 2 years, because other artist B over here is already making us X amount of money, and we don't want to cut into that. We want to squeeze them for all they're worth, and then once they're fallen out of the limelight, then we can release this new CD that you created, and you have no legal recourse because you signed away ownership, right?
Hence,
Um,
that's why you call them golden handcuffs.
Exactly. And let's just real fast, I want to just mention how antiquated some of these contracts are. One of the contract in most contracts, there's this big to do. There's something called breakage that they charge you for. And what is breakage? Breakage is from the time when vinyl was sold, and they would account for X amount of vinyl records being broken or scratched in during delivery to stores. And so they still charge you in some contracts for breakage fees, and that's just absolutely ridiculous. So that's what we're working with. And one other thing, whenever you get your money advance and you go and make your music, right? When you start selling it, you don't see a penny until there's something called a recoupable, which the label is going to get their cash advance back before they start paying you any significant amount of money, right? And so you don't you don't know how successful your career is going to be. You don't know if it's going to take off. So it could all be for naught, essentially, right? And so you just lose all ownership. And a lot of artists have a really, really they have PTSD and horror stories from they make it, they think they cut a CD, and then they realize, oh my god, I have no control now, and so they become really jaded with the industry in and of itself. So everyone needs to realize the labels are not here for the artist; they're here to make money, and the artist themselves, they are a product as far as they're concerned. They might try to spin it one way or the other, but that's how it is. And the one other thing, records labels right now, they're extremely risk adverse. They do not want to invest in new artists because they have to be able to recoup those costs, and so they're not really looking to sign as many people now. If you really look at the numbers, so it's a broken model. It's an antiquated model. They see the writing on the wall, but they're trying to squeeze everything out for what it's worth, right? And so with the whole NFT craze that we all are experiencing right now, um, you all know this, but just like the Mark Cubans of the world, what did they first try to do with an NFT in general? They just tried to replicate a physical object in the real world, repackage it with a digital NFT, tag around it, and then resell it to you. That's what they have originally tried to do. What we're doing with Muse is something completely different, and I think those of you who are aware of the space and really understand the power behind NFTs are going to really grasp what you can do. So that's the old traditional model. That's how that works. But what we're trying to do is rethink the entire structure. And so what we're thinking and what we're going to do is I want you to think of Spotify, and then I want you to think of crowdfunding, right?
Yeah,
Put them
because
together.
yeah, Ryan, what you described there at the beginning with the old models, with things like breakage fees in the contract, that's a highly centralized model where the record label doesn't really provide any value to the end user. They're just a middleman who, quote unquote, is getting the music from the producers and somehow in some way delivering it to the end users. Okay, we don't need trucks to deliver vinyl records anymore, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So you have found and devised your team. You have a team of people working on this, a decentralized solution to this problem of getting. I'm a user. I purchase music. I listen to music. How do you get your music to me? How's this going to work, bro? Tell me the story. What you
Okay.
got?
So here's what we're going to do. I want you to, so most artists, whether it's record label or an individual artist, they have to go through a distributor to get the music on these streaming platforms, unless they have a direct relationship with the platform itself. So what does that look like? You have to input metadata about an audio file, right? And so we're right now. I'm just talking about the recording side. We're not talking about the composition side of things because that's like another podcast in and of itself. But for the mechanical and recording side of things, right? So you put in, here's the title, artist, all these things, right? Well, we're not asking musicians to do anything different, except when you go to input your metadata and you go, here's the tag and everything for the audio file. We're going to have a section underneath that says list all the entities that have fractional ownership over this audio file. And this is where the magic happens, because what we're doing is we're taking care of the payment and ownership from Jump Street. This is not a secondary thought. This is primary, right? And so you're going to be able to list. It can be as simple as myself in my bedroom. So one person has full ownership. I wrote the words. I wrote the music. I did the recording. I own everything about this. So I can be one person that has 100% ownership. Or it could be as extensive as we have a producer, we have an arranger, a composer, we have the main artist, we have some instrumentalist, we have a mix engineer, we have a mastering engineer. It could be up to 10 or 12 entities, depending on the size of the project, that they predetermined who they're going to have X amount percentage ownership over this product, right? And so you're going to be able to input that data. When you do, on the back end, it's going to mint an audio NFT that's going to be the parent token. Based off of the entities you listed, we're going to generate child tokens that are concatenated within that. And then by holding that token, you're going to, it's going to take care of it. It's going to show you own X percentage of the total amount of that audio file. Okay, so that's the very first thing you do. And that's all in the back end. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a subscription service, right? And it's for the consumers. I want to point that out. This is very important to me as a musician. This service is going to be free to use for content creators. So audiobooks, podcast, anything music audio-wise, right? It's free to use because you, the content creators, like you yourself, Rick, you are providing content for the platform. There would be no platform without the artists and the content creators, right? So the subscription fee is going to come from the consumers. It's probably going to be, we're looking at prices, but probably rough around $7.99 monthly subscription fee, right? All the money is going to go into a massive pot. At the end of the month, we are going, regardless of how much you have in your account, we're going to calculate total number of streams, how many streams your audio file got in relation to the total amount of streams, and then that's going to determine the payout that goes to that parent token, right? At that point, based off of the child tokens, it's going to auto-distribute the total amount paid to the parent token. It'll auto-distribute with your correct ratios to the other owners, right, of the token. That's
okay. And
that's the
this payout is done by who? A bunch of suits sitting in skyscrapers in New York City?
I love it. Don't you love it? Here it comes. Smart contracts, right? What? Those mythical things that people don't think exist, even though they've already run on the testnet. But yeah, there you go. So here's the deal. I'm going to go on a quick,
I love this, man. Please do.
So NFTs and smart contracts, the entire point, I tell this to everyone, if you look at the reason for blockchain from 1.0, right, it was to bank the unbanked. That was the pitch, right? And that's great and lovely. And Bitcoin, it facilitated this whole revolution. Well, now we've moved beyond that. And now in my brain, the point of blockchain in general is to replace needless middlemen with protocol that's not incentivized to make a profit unless you need it to do X, Y, and Z. So by doing that, you're trimming off all the fat, all the middlemen, and replacing it with a protocol who is not, they're not biased. You can't bribe them. You can't bribe protocol. You can't bribe code, right? So for example, we're going to be eventually integrating AGI Singularity Nets potentially into the algorithm in our platform to help with your streaming experience. If you like something, we can pump that through and you can have a curated playlist. That's going to be in later iterations, but that's coming. So here's the deal. In the traditional world, there are roughly 3 people that control whose music gets put on like the Friday playlist on Spotify. There are humans that control who makes it into the top playlist. So
you mean like Joe Rogan instead of me?
Yeah, exactly. What are they doing? You just didn't pay somebody enough. That's what it is, right? So, literally, there are record labels that go, "Hey, we have this artist," and they'll talk to a streaming service, and they go, "Great, send us one of their pieces of music, and we'll have it as the number 1 by the end of the week." They do that. That's a real thing that happens. So, how can people compete with that? Well, you replace the greedy folks with protocol who doesn't care who you are, and it's going to go strictly off of the amount of streams. So everyone, all of a sudden, everyone's on the same playing field. And that to me is the most important thing. I want to point this out. I don't think there's anything wrong with giving away ownership of your music if you so choose. But a lot of musicians don't realize what they're signing, right? And I have no problem with that. If you choose to and you need upfront cash, that's great. You'll have that option. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But my biggest concern is that everyone has the same platform to work on and the same tools, right? And so by doing this, we're facilitating that. So I just described to you the streaming side, right? And this is only a part of the equation of what we're actually doing, right?
Yeah.
And so um, let's talk about the other half of the equation, which really
Okay.
excites
It's
me.
a very small part. Now, before we go to the other half, which you
Okay,
gave me some hints, there. So let's take on this first half that artist who is only getting paid out by the middleman when their account hits $1,000. Is the protocol going to do that, or how's the protocol going to do it?
no, it doesn't matter if you have 5 cents or if like the transaction fee might be worth more than the amount you're getting, but the protocol is going to pay out at the end of our predetermined payout time, probably a month, right? Or however many epochs we want to list our time
Yeah,
frame
like
on.
6 epochs. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's going to pay out whatever you have in your account, and it's not going to be determined by how little or big your account is. So that's the one of the beautiful things about this. So an artist can have $100 in their account, and they're going to get their $100 if they so choose at the end of that pay period. They can remove it, right?
Cool. Okay. Sounds
Yeah,
to me like you are pushing power to the edges.
we're trying.
That's what you're doing here. That's awesome. Tell me about the second half. This is really cool.
Okay. So most musicians are going to. So we're finding that I'm a musician, so I can say this. A lot of musicians are lazy. We like to just create things and then let the details kind of work themselves out, and that gets you in trouble. So one of my co-founders, his name is Florian. He's our economist, and he's a former venture capitalist fund manager. He's German, and so and I said, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, that's great, but this doesn't work. And I went, well, that sucks. Tell me why. And so, and if you look at like Tidal, it failed. Why did it fail? Well, there's a lot of costs and expenditures, and they tried to give too much away to the users, and then it wasn't a good monetary system. It didn't work. So Florian came up with the concept of, okay, well, why can't we just do X, Y, and Z? And so this is where this was birthed from. I have to give them credit because my original scope for this project, I got together with some people and said, hey, I want a streaming service that I can make a living putting my music on, or at least a comparable amount of money.
A use case that
Yes,
has a problem to be solved.
correct. Now,
Perfect.
right, and that's what my original scope was. And I was fortunate enough to bring in some extremely talented and smart individuals who are much more intelligent than myself on these matters, and they took that
Yeah.
original scope and
Yeah.
we broadened it and made it a viable business model. And so here we are into this, I find, extremely just amazing concept. Let's just give a real world example. I just want you to think of a stock market for music.
Okay. Stock
There you
market
go.
for music. All right.
Right. So let me ask you this, Rick. If you, and I'm going to keep using this just because I like the song. If you could have owned and received royalties for 5% of the total income from Purple Rain over the years, would you have liked to have done that?
Absolutely. If I had the money to do it, I certainly would. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So record labels got to, right?
So you mean I would get every time that song brought in revenues, I would get 5%.
Yeah. If you own 5% of the total ownership, right?
Yeah.
So what we're doing and what we're going to allow it to do is if an artist creates a song and they think it's really great, but they need money to make more music. Well, normally the traditional business model, they would go and try to sign with the record label and they would give away a 100% and then they would have no more say.
The
Well,
golden handcuffs.
the golden handcuffs, there they go.
Okay.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to enable everyone the option to choose to invest in an artist's music directly. Now, an artist can choose not to sell their music or sell partial ownership. They can choose to keep it all for themselves, and that's great. But if they need capital and they are wanting to do this, they can choose to either auction off or to sell at whatever fee that they want, partial ownership or as much as they want to of their audio file that they have to give away. Right. So what I can do is I can put up 5% and put it for auction, and people can bid on it and try to purchase partial ownership over a song. Now, what does that do conceptually? Well, it does about three things. The first one is normally we as consumers, if we like a piece of music, we buy the CD or we download it or we stream it, and that's it. That's where your
That's pretty much
connection,
how I do it. Yeah.
yeah, that's where your connection stops, right? Well, if I can all of a sudden own part of some piece of music, I am now incentivized to make sure it gets streamed a lot, right? Because if it gets streamed a lot and that artist is successful, then I'm going to be compensated because I chose to invest in them early on, right? So I'm now going to be incentivized to increase the amount of streams, which in turn is going to increase the revenue for the artist and also increase the revenue for myself as an owner, right? So that's the first positive feedback loop. Well, what's the second? I'm going to want to bring more people onto the platform so they too can listen to this music and increase the streams. So then you're going to increase the use case of the platform itself. So you have the first positive feedback loop, consumer to artist, and then you have the second feedback loop, which is consumer to consumer, right? And so one thing I haven't mentioned is all of these interactions, purchasing, is going to be taking place using our token on the platform. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but it's going to be our token specific to MUSE. And so artists will have an option when they get paid in their pay period. If they think the platform is going to increase in value, then they can choose a ratio that they would like to get paid their fees in either a stable coin or the token, right? And so they can choose whatever ratio they would like, but they can do that. People that are buying ownership, that's all on the market side of things, that will all take place using our native token, right? So, and yes, artists can definitely do the low hanging fruit. They can offer NFTs of like a signed album artwork. They can do that. That's fine. But the power comes in being able to bring consumers along the journey with the artists themselves by allowing them to have some ownership in the music itself, right?
That is powerful.
Yeah, like that
So,
to me. Sorry, go.
yeah. Okay. So let's say you're an artist. I'm a consumer. You create something. You could sell 5% or you could sell 45% of your song out to other people. You still own 55% of it. So technically, you still got 55% of the vote and 55% of the revenues. So I'm a consumer and I see a one hit wonder or I hear a song and I'm like, oh my gosh, that thing is going to blow up. Like we've seen over the decades, there are a lot of bands that have those one hit wonders that put them in the box, put them on the top of the charts. And so I could buy a piece of that song
Yes,
and get
ride that train.
5% forever, like as long as it's a hit.
Right, in perpetuity. And that's the cool thing about this. And I will say this, as an artist, when you release an album, most people think about what you do. You listen to like the first 3 or 4 pieces, and then you probably never make your way all the way down the album, typically, because if you just that's
Most
just human nature.
albums, Ed Sheeran's a great example. I like, 7 out of the 11 songs on the Divide album, and I hit those ones a lot, and the other ones incidental, right?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
think about this. This platform is now not going to just attract music lovers. This platform is going to attract investors, people that invest in art, everyday people who are trying to invest in things,
Hmm.
because now they're going to be scouring these music files and just wanting to try to buy random things to just try to hit it on one of them, right?
Yeah, find
So
that one hit wonder, find that artist like the next Rihanna, the next Christina Aguilera, right? The
exactly.
next Ed Sheeran.
So we are incentivizing people to go search.
Maybe
So
Soldier Boy will jump on it.
right.
He's
So
into crypto.
yes, he is. So yeah, like truly, now we're incentivizing people to go and not just listen to 1, 2, and 3 on the album, but also all the way to the end to try to find these gems, right? So, and one thing I haven't pointed out, which is people will look at this and go, well, okay, the labels, since they're in bed with the streaming services, they're incentivized to squash this. No, they're not, and this is why. If they use this platform, remember the record labels are the sole owner of these audio files, right? If any artist is signed, they've given away 100%. Well, what's stopping the record labels from deploying those audio files on our platform? Nothing. What do they gain? They actually get rid of a distributor. So that's a point of payment, and that might seem minuscule, but when you have on average 20 million songs that you want to upload and you want to put on the platform, then that's not an insignificant amount of money that they're going to be saving by deploying on this platform.
Mhm.
Now, one other thing that I haven't mentioned yet is, well, we've replaced we've replaced middlemen with protocol that's not incentivized to make a profit, right? Well, what does that allow us to do? On the streaming side, we can already offer the artist more than the average payout by Spotify per stream, right? Anywhere between like 1.2 to 2x the amount right off the bat per stream we can pay the artist. By we, I mean the protocol itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anybody who deploys on our platform is going to make more money on average per stream just off of Jump Street, because there's not the middleman, right? We're not having to pay that. One other thing, as a musician, growing up in when I was in high school, my day job, my evening job for about 4 days out of the week is I played at a library bar, and for about 4 or 5 hours a night, and I had a tip jar, and so what made me a lot of money was people that just happened to enjoy what I was playing. They might have had a couple of drinks and some smokes, and they would go, "I'm just really loving this," and I'll see $100 bill pop up in my tip jar all of a sudden. And as a as a high school kid, I go, "Hey, thanks so much for paying for my gas this week," right? So we're actually building in directly to the streaming side of things a tip button for micropayments that will be paid out in our token to artists. So think about it. If you're having a rough day and you're just listening to something and you're really feeling some piece of music, you might be very, just feel, I'm going to go ahead and tip them. I'm just really feeling this. That goes directly to the artist. Now, this is minuscule, but for artists, this is a big deal, and they just really, really like that concept. So we're building in micropayment with tips directly from the app. So that's one other thing. So all that to say, we are able to offer more per stream because we're replacing middleman with protocol, right? And we're allowing everyday users to participate in helping fund and owning partial ownership, and investing in and following artists on their journey, right? So all
Yeah.
that's being built into this is essentially kind of what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. So Ryan, I've got a case example for you.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm a listener, purchaser of music, and I buy a 5% NFT of music that you made. Okay. I buy this NFT as a regular guy, right? And now that music is starting to be a big hit. Can the record labels, they might offer me more for that NFT, yes?
That's what I was about to say. Yes, you were spot on. So there's nothing stopping record labels from also participating in purchasing ownership over music. There is nothing
Okay.
stopping them from doing that. So really, I don't see why any artist would want to deploy on another platform whenever this is free and you get paid more per stream and you open up your potential consumer base to everyone at this point and not just industry, right? And there are a lot
Yeah.
of high net worth individuals who will pay a crap ton of money to have ownership over an audio file. You know that. I mean, if
Yeah.
somebody wants to pay $69 million for a piece of digital art, why not music?
Teacher, I have a question.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. Um, so if I buy this 5% NFT, I have two possible revenue streams. I can sit on it, and every month when that play gets paid out, I get a cut.
Yes, based off of your percentage of ownership.
So I'm sitting on this thing making money.
Yeah.
Or I can sell it to Sony or Panasonic or Spotify
Yes,
at a
you
profit.
can sell it to anyone you would like to. Yeah.
Or loss. Or loss, right?
Or loss.
Not financial advice.
No, no, right?
This is
So
brilliant, man. I love it.
oh, well, thanks. Well, I want to say one other thing. As far as this is going back to the artist, the label side of things, and I just want to drive this point home to people. So many people think that in David and Goliath stories. I mean, like the Goliaths are not incentivized to let the little people succeed, and they're just going to squash innovation. No, because one other thing they can do. Let's say they give someone a $500,000 cash advance for a new artist, right? Well, let's say they then turn around and deploy that music on Muse. Well, they can then sell their ownership of that audio file and recoup their cost. So they can actually offload risk. And so now this incentivizes them to actually bring in more people, right? So, this is a win-win, in my opinion, for everyone. And this is completely changing the entire model of things. And it's so just sectioned off. And everybody, they create all these middlemen out of necessity because they didn't think about it up front, and they built it just thinking of X and Y. And then as this has grown, they go, oh, well, we should probably make sure they get their payments. So let's add this in, right? No, we're taking care of all this from Jump Street. That's just me, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
And so one thing I didn't talk about is how we're actually saving music, right? When you upload your audio file, where does it go?
Yeah, that's a good. So the mechanics, it's good to talk about that. What do you got?
Yeah. So now get ready, all of you Cardano folks that are watching this, just collective breath as of right now. I'm about to say a dirty word. Yeah, here we go. We are going to be doing a cross collaboration with a different blockchain for our storage solution. And it's going to be on Storage. So we're not going to use IPFS. We're not going to be using that. We are going to use Storage for our storage solution for the audio files. So that's what we're going to be doing. Don't freak out. I think this is, in my opinion, this is a sign of the entire space maturing and growing. We can all
using
work together.
Using the strengths of multiple chains.
Exactly.
So what's Storage going to do for us?
Yeah, that's the decentralized storage solution, right? There is none as of right now built on Cardano, not yet, right? And so we were looking around, and that's what we came up with that we were wanting to use for our storage solution. So,
okay.
But yeah,
then the NFTs are where?
Cardano. They're on the ADA blockchain.
Good, because they're too expensive to trade on Ethereum.
Well, exactly. That's the other thing. I'm like, no musician is going to want to go spend even $7.
Yeah, I'm going to pay you out, $1,000, but it's going to cost $150 to do it. Sorry, pal, that ain't going to work.
No. Oh, look, like last night, right? I went to go provide some liquidity on AGIX token, right? As it's doing right now, and I went to go pay my gas fee for that transaction, and I almost lost it. I went, oh my god. It's only $10 for this transaction. That's unacceptable. That is just not that's not scalable. We all know this, right? And ETH2 is coming sometime soon. Yeah. So all that to say, so the smart contract side and the front end is all going to be on Cardano, but the storage solution is going to be on Storage. So.
Okay. All right. So let's get some questions from the audience. Also talk about the team, not specifically who's on the team, but briefly. So you have a sizable team, or you've got a number of experts. So you're the music expert. Sounds like you have an economics expert. Sounds like you have a blockchain expert and a developer. So is that pretty much who you got for the team at this point?
Then we also have, so I have two co-founders, and then I'm the founder. And so one of them is the blockchain / just the tech operations expert. And then we have our economist, Florian, right? And then we also have our web dev. And then we also have our head of marketing, so essentially you'll start seeing more about this. I know probably people are going to ask, well, what artists are on the platform? I cannot talk about that yet.
Yeah, we'll get to those questions, but okay, you can't talk about it yet. Sorry about that.
I can. Yeah, as of right now, we there are some NDAs out, and we're actually in talks with some decently large name artists as well as some labels. So that is in the works. But so we have that, and our marketing guy is going to do. We're going to have a referral program, and then we're going to have some ambassadors who are people in the music space that understand this, that get this, that are going to be getting this out to people. So here's what we're finding, right, in our preliminary research in chats, and I have multiple talks with multiple artists slash artist managers and stuff every week right now. It's been a little crazy, but two things we're finding that we're going to need: educational material for musicians to understand how this is different and how this is going to empower them. So we're going to need to show them what tools they are going to have at their disposal. But then also, and an artist said this sounds too good to be true. If I didn't know this existed, I would have never even thought to look at this as a solution, right? And so just getting the word out is going to be a big deal. So here, and so we have two approaches. I come from the approach of, I want to build this from the ground up. I want grassroots. I want 1,000 artists to be ready to deploy on the platform when we launch, right? And that's, we're working towards that. But my economist said, Florian said, yeah, but we really need like some big name people to just add some validity. And, it's true. You need both. And so we're building this, we're growing this from both ends. And that's how this is going to be working. So, I don't know if that answers your question about that. But
no, it does.
Sorry,
it does. Sorry, go ahead.
One other thing, our team, I love how diverse our team is. So I think there's 3 Americans, 1 Czech, a German, and then 2 Swiss individuals, I think. So I love it. And it's, for me, as new to business world, right? So getting work done while I'm asleep, because I don't think there's one person that's not awake at some point or time while we're working or doing things. It's fantastic. At this point, I do think this project could completely happen without me even being around, which is very humbling and an amazing thing. So, that's just my opinion at this point.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. It's fun to work with other cultures and learning from other people about their cultures. A long time ago, NASA did a study to figure out how do you get 6 fighter pilots to qualify as astronauts and send them to Mars. And the answer to the study was, you can't. They will kill each other before they ever get to Mars because too homogenized. So what I'll do, I'm going to touch on viewer comments, and we'll get any other viewer questions. We are approaching about the 50-minute mark, so we'll be wrapping up shortly. Ryan, we're going to have to do another podcast, man. Once you get into the mechanics and the delivery in the coming months, whenever you want, you just reach out to me. Let me know, man. We'll be in close contact. We'll be in close communications, and we'll fire up another podcast when you're ready.
Appreciate it. We
tell
will
people
be
more about it, and
we will be going to we'll be putting out a Catalyst proposal in round 6, just to let everyone here know. So,
okay. All right. Sounds good. And you also have, for the viewers, there are links down below in the description. Check out the links down there. As MUSE begins bringing more things online, they'll be putting out YouTube videos. So check out the YouTube link. Check out the link to Ryan's Twitter so you can get updated information, more real-time updated information after the podcast is complete. And while you're down there, go ahead and smash the like and subscribe button, and feel free to share this video with your friends and your family and people that you know out there in the world. Pass this video along to them, especially if you know some musicians, or if you know some people who are in the music writing or music production business. Let them know about this podcast. Good things are coming. There was a few comments. Let's see here. I'll touch on them.
I hope Charles sees this, since he is a pianist, from one pianist to another.
Yeah. There you go. I'll give him a tag on the thing. Hey, Charles, check this out. One person said, your house looks sick. From Patrick Tobler. I thought so too.
Yeah, guys, this is a green screen. I do have a piano in my house, and it is a baby grand, but this is all green screen. Patrick, you know that.
Yeah, that's the dream house for when Ada hits like $5 or $10, right?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing too. It's like, hey, there's a dream house in mind out there somewhere. Okay,
somewhere.
Big Pay's here. Good to see Big Pay. Patrick Tobler. Lots of folks here. I thought I saw a few questions in here. Enoch Sosh asked, I'm late arriving. Is this a Project Catalyst proposal? That's the one you just touched on.
Yeah,
you'll be on Fund 6.
Fund 6.
Okay, Fund 6 will be up on Project Catalyst. Currently, how are you funded? Are you funded? You're just self-funding, right?
As of right now,
pools and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think my crypto journey was like a lot of people's. I was around in 2016, and so I came for the money, stayed for the tech. One of those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm. So yes, I am. As of right now, we are this group of individuals. We're all working on our own time, to be quite frank, until we start getting funding. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. You're on your own time, on dime, self funded. Okay. And,
yeah,
you know, a lot of people did that. Nothing to be ashamed of. Came for the money, stayed for the tech. That's 99% of
yeah,
people in Cardano, people in crypto. That's all there's to it. Right.
spot
Uh,
on.
you already touched on it. Enoch Sosh asks again. Thank you, Enoch, for the questions. Have you onboarded any artists
I can
yet?
I can give you one, and I do have okay to say this. He's a personal friend of mine, but he's also he's a great bridge between classical and I guess you can. I'm just going to use a generic term, pop, as well. But you can look him up. His name is Blake Morgan, and he's going to be deploying. He'll be ready to go as soon as we are ready to launch. So
Okay, Blake Morgan.
yeah, y'all go give him
Interesting.
a follow. He has about 20,000 Twitter followers right now. He does some really cool stuff. Has some really cool friends. So
Okay, I'm gonna check his stuff out. I'm gonna check his stuff out. Might be a new up and coming big hit artist. I'm interested in, you know, it'd be nice to find a one hit wonder NFT, but it's the artist like who's not yet known, who blows up and becomes, you know, the next Michael Jackson, right? That'd be
just
crazy. That'd
saying.
be awesome.
No, I'm
Right.
with you. Well, I'm building my own solution. I am most assuredly going to be using this platform. That's what that's the entire point behind even starting this to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So some of these questions are in summary. Enoch Sosh, I think you already answered it. Is it specific to Cardano? You have a hybrid solution, Store J on Ethereum, and then Cardano for the NFTs, the sales, and everything else.
Yep.
And Store
Yep. Yep.
J
Yep.
is where the file storage will be because it's proven to be. Is it proven to be like resilient? You have a Store J expert on the team.
Yes, we do. Yes, it yeah. According to him, it will be so. And I will say this as a leader. My biggest thing is what makes a person an effective leader is knowing what you don't know, and then finding people who do, and then trusting them and getting out of their way. Right. So that's what we did with this. So I will say, just as an aside, the delegators to remember, we do use Muse, the stake pool, to help fund this partially, right? So delegators to that stake pool will get an airdrop whenever smart contracts go live with the token that's going to be used in the platform. Just as an aside.
No, that's good to know. That's a mechanical feature that people need to know because, you know, on Cardano Live we don't advertise or promote specific stake pools, and we don't accept tokens in exchange for promotion. But if there's a mechanical feature, you have to tell people how it works, and that's how it works. So there you go.
Yeah,
All right,
and
we're just not advertising. We're telling you this is how it works.
yeah.
Okay,
Well,
great.
I
That's
want to
fine.
put one other thing out there. The reason we're waiting until smart contracts is because we want to be very transparent, and at least for the founders and co-founders, there will be a vesting period. So we want to make sure that we can just lock them up with smart contracts before we mint them. So
Okay, sounds like you have a measured approach to getting this done. You touched on this earlier as well, specific to Cardano. That's what we just answered. And then there was one more. I don't know if you can answer this. What about the name Muse? No conflict with the group Muse.
no, 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 no.
Yeah, yeah. There's you know things like copyright and trademark, which you guys are probably also going to address things such as copyright and trademark as well. Um, if here's how I read it in the examples, like when I was registering my business, Digital Fortress, when I was registering that, things like Muse or names. So you can make a McDonald's Garden Center, and then there's McDonald's Hamburger. But if I make a place called McDonald's Burgers, I just stepped on their namespace, right?
Hmm.
But if there's a group named Muse, and there's a shoe named Muse, and there's a record label named Muse, but you create a software platform called Muse, that doesn't step on the namespace because Muse has a historical namespace that goes back to ancient Greek history, right?
Exactly.
And so you can't copyright a piece of ancient Greek history, right? And
You
just
can
say, hey,
try.
I'm the only one who gets to keep this namespace. You can do it for
Right.
tennis shoes, Muse tennis shoes. Okay, yeah, you can trademark that. You can uh, reserve the namespace. But I understand what you mean. That's a good question, because in crypto, I've noticed there's a lot of stepping on copyright and stepping on trademark. Like, some people are making NFTs that directly step on other people's creative property rights. It's very obvious, and I see it and I go, oh, okay, well,
Hmm.
yeah. And they go, well, I can get away with it because either they're anonymous or it's on blockchain, it's immutable. We talked about that on one of the podcasts. But so I'm assuming you guys are going to develop or identify a method for protecting an artist. Let's say I'm an artist and I develop
Hmm.
music and I deploy it on your platform, Muse, right? It's going to be somehow protected. There's nothing that stops me from re-recording it into another application, but the platform itself will provide some level of protection, I assume.
Yes, yes, it will. Without getting into the weeds right now about that, but just for everybody to know, PROs are performance rights organizations, and there is a PRO. There's multiple for the mechanical side, and there's multiple for the composition side, and their entire job is to go scrape metadata and to pay out royalties based off of that metadata. And without getting into the weeds about this, they take half of the profits total. That's a 5-year plan for us, and that'll be coming in much later iterations. But yeah, that's the thing. And then everybody, your song either has an ISWC code or an ISRC code, which is associated with your either mechanical recording or your actual composition. So yeah, there's things we're working on about that. Yeah.
Okay. That's good stuff. I'm glad you're thinking about that. And I'll give you an example. Let's say a song first deployed on Muse, and it is only deployed on Muse, right? And let's
Yes.
say that artist hears their song getting played on Spotify. They can stop and say, "Hey, wait a second. I didn't deploy it on Spotify yet, or I didn't deploy it on Spotify under my license. What's it doing over there?" That's just an example, right? But
Mhm.
it will help protect the artist's property rights.
Yes, and I want to point this out to everyone. We're at the cutting edge, and by we I mean blockchain in general, right? In the crypto space. Um, and so, while yes, in our ideal world, one day people will do all of this, and like Muse will be the gold standard, right? And you won't have to use any other rights to prove ownership because you have the NFT and it's time stamped and it's immutable on the blockchain. However, until we get to that place, we still have to play with the legacy system to an extent, right? And so, really, that in and of itself is probably the more difficult thing to tackle in this entire blockchain space, in my opinion. Is just how do you build temporary bridges to work with the traditional models, but that then eventually, once they die away, then you can just cut those off and you don't have to worry about them, right? So that's something we're definitely actively thinking about.
Yeah, it's a transition stage, like going from horse and buggy to automobiles. It took a little while.
Correct.
Ryan, you have been an incredible wealth of knowledge on the podcast today. My greatest thanks to you, sir, for coming on Cardano Live and telling us everything you've explained today.
Ah,
I
thanks so
appreciate
much,
it.
Rick. I really appreciate you. I've been watching your stuff. I mean, gosh, at least since I think you guys came out in 2017, didn't you?
The Cardano effect, we launched that in November of 2018.
2018. Okay.
But Philippe and Sebastian and myself were making videos in late 2017, early 2018. Yeah, we had Tommy from A to Tainment making videos early 2018, late
That's
2017
right.
timeframe. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's probably where you may first come across them. And I
Most
enjoy
certainly.
using YouTube and Twitch. So for the viewers, also deploying on Twitch, and I look forward to deploying on other platforms. I've been tinkering with other ones like D Live, and there was some, and Theta. I poked around at that one. Each of them have their kind of like capabilities and limitations that I'm going to
Mhm.
have to work through those before I really rely on those platforms, and deploy uh,
Yeah,
more
no doubt.
thoroughly. Right. Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
hey, let's do another one in the future sometime when you have some of the mechanics worked out, and you have more information available on the Muse YouTube channel as well. Right.
Yeah, the YouTube channel as well as the website. This is projectmuse.io. You guys can go there to sign up and get email notifications whenever we start pushing out new stuff. So, yeah,
Yep. Yep. And link down below in the description. Check out the link down below for the projectmuse.io. It's still basically under construction. You got more coming to that website, but people can submit their email address to get subscriber updates, like when the tokens deploy and stuff like that.
Yes.
All right. Looking forward to another podcast with you again here coming up in the future. Ryan, any last word for the audience? We'll wrap it up. What you got? Final words.
Well, I hope you guys follow us. We are trying to do something. It seems almost commonsensical, but I do find that a lot of the best ideas always seem like that in hindsight. So we're really, really trying to change the game and give power back to musicians and back to the creators. So really, really hope we have your guys' support. Follow us along and help keep us honest, because we want to make sure everybody knows what's going on. So
awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everyone. Everybody have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.